Well, hello. I've got with me here Tanner Tattered, who is an extremely bright young man who I wanted to help spread the knowledge, although he's much more popular than me. It's kind of silly that I'm trying to spread an awareness of him, but I know that there is a different demographic, as I believe, Tanner, you're mostly on Tick Tock, and TikTok's kind of like the Generation Z thing. Instagram's kind of like a millennial thing, and then Facebook's kind of like X and boomers. So it's like, let's bridge the gap because you're a very bright person, and I don't really look at age as being anything more than a number. Whether someone's smart or not, it's nothing to do with how old they are. And I could get into that till I'm blue in the face. But well, tell us a little bit about yourself. And first of all, like, I don't even know how old you are. How old are you?
Yeah, so I'm 23. 23 years
Okay.
old.
All right,
Yeah.
that makes sense, kind of. I was like, is this kid like 17 and this smart? I was like, what the fuck?
No. Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of an overview about where I'm coming from. So we'll start basically from day one of how I got on the internet in the first place. And that is over, I think it was about 2 summers ago, or like about a summer ago, May of last year, I started making TikToks. And it was mostly just out of a copy paste of what other people were doing, especially in the younger generation. Some of the TikToks you'll see, there's guys showing off their physiques with some sort of a motivational quote or encouraging other people to get in the gym. That's a very popular genre. I started basically on that same route. It is an oversaturated field. And so along the way, I started realizing I'm not really going to be able to differentiate myself if I'm doing the same thing as everybody else. And leading up to that point, I had done a ton of research on, enhancements and enhancement protocols, all of these things. And I noticed that a lot of younger guys on the internet, especially in my generation, genuinely had no idea what information was legitimate and correct and what information was subpar, shall we say. So there'd be expectations out there like, oh, you can just blast enough gear and you'll look like Chris Bumstead after your first cycle, which is completely false. So that was the first video I made, which is, you don't just get to hop on gear and look like the classic Mr. Physique Olympian. And after that, that video really took off, and I started to find out that there is a niche there where there's a lot of young guys who just honestly don't know this stuff. And so I bring that information that so many other established creators like yourself have, and then translate it in a way that's basic and easy to understand for a lot of the younger guys out there. That's kind of been my whole spiel, and that's gotten me to where I am today.
So, out of curiosity, you mentioned Chris Bumstead. Have you competed, or do you have any aspirations of competing?
Yeah, so my coach puts me in about 17 months out from competing.
That's right. You said so. Okay. Who's your coach?
Justin Mihaly.
Who is it?
Justin Mihaly.
Oh, I haven't heard of him. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Is he working with anyone I would have heard of?
Ross Flanagan, you know him. He won.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I know who Ross Flanagan is.
Yeah, I don't think he coaches him, but they're like co-owners of a Team Mihaly. It's like a coaching team.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's a cool backstory, and it's short, but you're young, so it wouldn't be expected to be that young. I noticed you got a 7-string behind you. You play that, I assume.
Yeah, it's more fair to say that I have it rather than I play it.
Okay.
Because I mean, I have friends who are very, very good, and I don't even feel worthy of the word, play, really. But it's nice, that Schecter treats me right. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, because everyone has a Schecter for their first fucking guitar. Yeah. The Schecter Guitar Research is the most pretentious name of any company in the world. It's like it's an introductory level guitar there. That's probably like an $800-900 guitar minimum, I'm sure.
Yeah, she was up there, but
she was up there. Yeah. It's not even like a Korean knockoff, like Ibanez was right. Japan, but LTD is the Korean or Japanese knockoff of ESP. Squire was the Korean knockoff of Fender, for example. I think Gibson had Epiphone, which was their Asian knockoff. And a lot of those are good guitars, but it's not this. It's just they're cheaper. So having a Schecter, I mean, that's the first line. That's not the knockoff version of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So let's see here. I had some questions I had picked out from I read. So for those of you guys who don't know, he is giving away an incredible amount of information for free, which is going to hurt somebody
We'll
very
see.
badly. Like I'm not going to say his name though, because he stopped picking on me on his little page with
Yeah,
with 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 39,500 fake followers. Let's see here. So let's see, you mentioned you can't mix oil and water. So I've been getting this nonstop since I did my insulin syringes are better than hypodermic syringes video. And that I was like, plus you're doing your GH shot anyway every night. You might as well just put your test in your GH and then load it.
Yeah.
And people are like, you can't mix oil and water. They don't mix. And I'm thinking, I feel like I'm going to go to a goddamn Italian restaurant, get the oil and vinegar thing and just shake it up and then hold it. And it's like, it's in suspension now, bitches. You know, like, why is it that you put, because there must be a reason why you put don't mix the oil in the water.
Yeah, so it was actually when we were talking on Paul's live stream, actually, I heard you mention that for a second. I was like, huh. Because historically I'd heard the exact opposite. Just like you're saying, there's probably a bunch of people that reach out to you and they're like, you can't do that, you can't mix those two.
Do that if you can't mix oil and water. Oh my god.
Yeah. And so I think back to the mentor who taught me that, and it was Vigorous Steve. And I had it been explained to me that there's a little bit of an infection risk there. And I don't know to what extent that is. And I mean, if you could explain like your side of the story and like how it works from what you're
so I can address the infection rate really easy. Oils don't get much bacterial growth. Waters do. That's why they have to be refrigerated. So let's say you were to load up a syringe with water and then leave it out for a day or two. Bacteria is growing in that syringe, right? So pretty much with the waters, you got to take it out of the fridge, load it up and shoot it. You don't want to fuck around with that. Oils, you can load that thing up and just leave it out sitting room temperature. You can put it in the mail and shit. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's pretty much sterile. The oil isn't going to grow bacteria nearly at the same rate as the water will. So I think that by mixing a water with an oil, you've now increased the rate of bacterial growth in that syringe relative to the all oil analog. Right. But you didn't accelerate the risk from the water.
Yeah.
And to me, and I think what I said on the podcast was, I learned this from my nursing assistant or a medical assistant, whatever they're called, when I was in practice, is rather than just giving someone a shot of an oil-based Kenalog, which is basically the catabolic steroid you do for inflamed tendons. If they don't want to just be patient, if they want to risk tendon rupture so they can get immediate relief, they would cut it with bacteriostatic water because the water is thinner than the oil. So the shot takes less time. It's less painful. It's instead of injecting cement into somebody, you can use a smaller needle and get it in there fast. Like a 25 gauge with a solution of oil and water injects faster than a 23 gauge with just oil. And a 23 gauge in an already painful tendon is going to make them jump right off the table, whereas a 25 gauge, they may not even notice. So that's why I think people bitch a lot about, oh, it takes forever to load up that insulin syringe. It's just like you sit and you watch TV and you load up the insulin syringe off the oil. And then if you don't want it to take forever to inject it, you mix in a little bit of the GH water or whatever, and that'll dilute it. The same thing with L-carnitine or whatever the fuck. You dilute it. So I didn't know if there is an actual reason like you don't absorb it as well. I would think actually you would absorb it faster because it would, instead of having just a big bolus of oil inside the muscle and the capillaries around the bolus of oil slowly siphoning off some of the oil into the capillary and then the endothelia cleaving off the side chain off of carbon 17, by having the water there, it kind of distributes it. And so that bolus, instead of being a sphere, might be more like a cylindrical prism or something like that. And so it has more surface area to volume ratio.
That's a good theory. I wonder if that actually would translate to any kind of like faster absorption. That's
I think
strange.
would it
What
faster absorb with the oil, probably slower absorb with the GH.
okay. What gauge do you use to inject, by the way?
I use 30.
Okay. Yeah, so then that would be pretty slow. I get that.
Yeah, I use 30. 29 is, I don't know. When you're doing one shot first thing in the morning, one shot pre-training, one shot post-training, one shot before bed, plus oils if you're doing a full load of oil every day. So you're doing like 6, 7 shots a day every day. The scar tissue mounts up really quick. That's why I think when people are like, oh my God, I don't want to do shots 3 times a week. I only do shots twice a week. I'm just like, what the fuck? You only do 3 shots a week and you're whining? It's like
Yeah.
you could just use an
The more
insulin
you get there.
syringe and inject every day and only do 7 shots a week, and you'll have no scar tissue.
Yeah. All the irritation guys get, I mean, doing the twice a week shots, especially too, they get these like huge lumps on their delts, and then eventually it's processed, and then
I
there's
think a
another
lot of
lump
it,
on Thursday. Yeah.
I think that's how, I think they do that because that is their delt. That they basically just put a bunch of oil abscesses into a non-existent middle delt. And if they just seed it correctly around the apex of the sphere, and they do like it in a semicircle, they can actually create a cap by just loading it up with oil.
Wow.
So let's see here. I thought I took more notes than that. Shit, I took one note. Oh, that the other thing was I noticed that you had given recommendations for blood work. And you had sent, like mentioned Merrick Health and some other company. So I know that Merrick has a pretty good panel. It's about $800. I do a panel with more stuff on it, and I actually charge 400. So
Oh, no way.
yeah, so it's like I'm not shameless plug. I actually don't make any money off of the blood work. I just can order it for people, and what do you call it, for cheaper than Merrick Health can.
Yeah.
Save them
No,
some money.
that's really efficient. I mean, I've been trying to like make any resource available to guys. It's the same thing even with the educators. Like there's going to be guys that I don't agree with maybe like a majority of the stuff that they're talking about. Even, the man who shall not be named, he's on my list because he does have
Right.
some interesting takes that I think guys should look at, maybe not take as gospel, but I think it's worth looking at. And then the same thing would go for blood work or any other sources where it's like, you should know what's out there and then take a look at all the options. And if you say, hey, wait a second, this guy has way more stuff than Merrick and it's like half the price versus that. Yeah, why not? Exactly. Is that with the Valhalla? Is that your thing or?
Oh, so yeah, I own Valhalla Labs, which is a supplement company.
Okay.
And right now, there is basically I had to switch partners is the best way to put it. And part of the switching partners process was shutting one business LLC down and starting up another one with a new partner, new bank account, new tax ID, and new manufacturer. And I'm also reformulating right now. So I took the opportunity to when inventory was low to change everything over. So right now it's not really up and running. Like I have a few things at the house that I can mail out, but for the most part, I'm just waiting for the new site to be up and running and put the old inventory on the new site. And then as far as you like my tap link, I think you put that on your master document. You actually have a consultation link for me. That's for the consultation. If my tap link that's actually on my Instagram has pretty much a way of going right to my practice, which is fusion regenerative therapies. And basically, if someone signs up for a consult, I'll ask if they like saying, hey, I want to get blood work. Before I do the consult with them, I'll just send them a link to Fusion, say, sign up as a patient. I'll order your blood work. Yeah. And once your blood work's in, then we'll do your consult. And that way we don't have to do 2 consults, we do 1.
Exactly. Yeah. That helps immensely. I mean, especially just like knowing the landscape of something before you start talking to someone about like, what are you taking? What should you be taking? All of those things down the line.
Right. Because usually people have what they think are the questions they want to ask, but a lot of the times they're not asking the right questions because they like your material is really good. I think everybody should read your FAQ. That's why I think you should charge for it. Make it into an ebook. And even if you charge $5 for it, I mean, you'll make a fortune. I think Justin Harris told me that he had no idea how much money he would make on ebooks until I actually made ebooks.
That is crazy.
And then it was just,
you know, I don't imagine making that much off of them. Maybe I would make them at some point. Maybe it's because there's so many ebooks out there that I have this, you know, rebel mentality that I want to put something out there that's free, because all the links on there are affiliate links, and I make a good deal just from those. So
I understand where you're going with this. Here, let me put it this way. Alex Kiekel's GH book is 80 pages, and the 79th page is where the actual information is that anyone would actually be able to use. That's $40. And then really? Yeah. It's like the 79th page should be the first page, and there should be links to the rest of the book. So like if you want to learn more, click here. But like it's not necessary. All you really have to know is if you're trying to grow, shoot 100% of your load of GH before bed. If you're getting beat up in the gym and sore tendons, do 25% of the load 1 hour post training and 70% of the load before bed. If you're trying to cut, do 100% of the load before fasted cardio. If you're trying to cut and grow, you're an idiot. But what you do is do 50% before fasted cardio and 50% before bed. That's it. 3 sentences. That's literally all anyone needs to know. And I mean, like, yeah, in the book, it says like, you know, GH is 191 amino acid sequence, and he'll have the peptide chain all 191. And it's like, I mean, that's cool. Like, okay, this is a complete document covering everything no one needs to know about this. And that's the point. And I understand that's why he's charging $40. But like on the same notion, you could just strip it down to the bare essentials, take the script from a GH video and do like a $2 ebook on GH.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, you have the same thing, like your reels or TikToks or shorts, because you got to call it by their own individial names for trademark purposes. Right. The short form videos that you have, because you stitched in and you've got the actual relevant graphics above you, you're able to condense the time from like a 30-minute college lecture into a 3-minute TikTok that has just as much information as a 30-minute college lecture.
That's exactly the mentality that I've got going into it. Is, you know, you look at some guys, Alex Kiekel is a really good example, where if you're to look at all of steroid educators or enhancement educators, whatever you want to call them, and, you know, put them in a metaphor of like grade school to like, you know, doctorate level classes, you've got Alex Kiekel as like, he's got the doctorate side of things, but Joe Schmo, who just wants to put on some more muscle, does not need a PhD in enhancements in order to get gains. At best, you know, maybe middle school level. First, like the grade school stuff is like speaking the language, make sure you understand concentrations, you can measure out your stuff properly so you don't get yourself hurt. Right? You don't want to be thinking that 0.5 units of insulin is like actually 50 units of insulin, and then you like,
which people do all the fucking time. And it's like, it's, I get emails like from client check-ins, they fuck it up so bad. And it's like, you know, one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone tells me what their cycle is in CCs. And it's just like, that is the stupidest fucking thing you could do, is tell me how many CCs you take. It's irrelevant. It's based on the concentration of the drug. We talk what I say is things is like adults talk about drugs in milligrams, not in volume. No idea what I just said. They just know I'm talking down to them. Totally pissed this person off. Accomplished nothing. So you actually have a video that's non-pedantic, non-condescending. I don't know how you fucking did it. You don't talk down to them, but you explain to them that this is a needle and these marks on a needle mean something. They're percentages of the total needle. One total needle is a CC. On your drug, it says A cc is a milliliter. On your bottle, it says 200 milligrams per milliliter. That means this whole needle is 200 milligrams. That would mean half the needle is 100 milligrams. And it's just like, if you didn't, and it's like the only way I knew how hard it was to shoot that was that the beginning of the video, it's a picture of an 18th century one-room school. Just like that's red. So like, it's just like, motherfuckers, you're in kindergarten. And then the video starts. It's like Peanut steroids edition.
Because it's still so closely relevant to me, because I do remember when I was learning about things, and there is that learning curve of either you have a buddy who's telling you all this stuff where it's like, yeah, you're going to want to take this much, whatever, or you're doing it yourself. And in the internet age, a lot of guys are doing it themselves, and that their only resource for figuring it all out is the internet. At that point, you know, you're looking up, like, I remember that moment where it's like, wait, 1 cc is 1 milliliter? Like, that's the same volumetric measurement? Yeah, it is. That was a mind-boggling realization. And then you have to try and translate this to people who genuinely have no idea. You know, all that they've heard is that, oh, I inject tren and I get jacked. Okay, but do you know the actual basic math of making that happen? And that's a real hurdle for people. So as much as it is a temptation for, like, when I'm in live streams and guys are like, hey, what do you think about my cycle? You know, 3cc boldenone, or when they say like 3cc sip, like, I don't sip what? Boldenone cypionate, testosterone cypionate? You're gonna have to specify a little better than that. It just like these little things where we should all be speaking the same language by now, to the point where we can have an educated dialogue. And to be a part of that conversation, you need the basics. You know, you need to understand the basics.
What's even scarier is people are so much more sophisticated now than they were 10 or 15 years ago. That 10 or 15 years ago, you know, that reputation bodybuilders have for being stupid?
Yeah.
It actually was valid at one point. that they had no fucking idea what they were talking about. And they literally thought that they knew more than science. Like, science isn't real. It's just a bunch of bullshit. And it's just like, first you eat beef for 4 weeks, then you eat chicken for 4 weeks, then you eat fish for 4 weeks. And then when you try to explain to them that the numbers on the package of food have meaning, and that this beef is 27 grams of fat per serving, and this beef is 5 grams of fat per serving, and this fish is 10 fat per serving, that means this fish is worse than this beef. And that this beef has more fat in one meal than you should be having in a whole day. They're like, I don't believe in that science shit. This is what you do to get jacked. Fat's good for you. And like, but you can't have sweet and low. That'll make you hold water. You know, and it's just like, no, you're not holding water, you stupid fuck. You're fat because of all the fat you eat. It's like, no, I mean, these are real conversations. You would have pulled your hair out. You'd be bald by now. If it's like, it's nuts. And now people understand things like the metric system does exist. It is real. They don't know what it is. The metric system is like a clitoris. Like they know it exists, but they have no idea where it is or how to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny to see that even though it was that bad that far ago, it's still bad, but just in a better way, maybe just slightly, right? And then we're going to slowly keep pushing that ball forwards until eventually, you know, you have a population of people who can actively engage in this stuff. You know, more people are knowing how to track their macros. More people are knowing how to keep an eye on their diet. They're using apps like Chronometer and MyFitnessPal. All of these things are becoming more and more accessible. So it does make me a little optimistic, but also at the same time, with all of the information that's out there, and you still have people coming to you with, you know, very subpar levels of education, really difficult to help people wrap their heads around it. Especially when people DM me and they expect me to be like their personal calculator. They're like, wait, well, how much do I take? I want to get this much. Or they're like, how long will this bottle last me? I don't know. How much are you taking? You know, how long will the 10 IU bottle of GH last with no indication of their dose? Are you taking 10 IUs a day? Then 1 day. You're taking 1 IU a day, then 10 days, you know?
Yeah. So I treat patients too. And then my experience is the bodybuilders and the Tick Tock kids and all that are still smarter than the average middle-aged adult. And that's what I think is so funny when they're like, why would you be friends with that person? They're 17. And I want to be like, you know they're smarter than their parents, right? Like people are told their whole life, like, you don't understand, you're just a kid. And it's like, when I was a kid, I knew I was smarter than my teachers. Like I knew, and that I knew I was smarter than my parents. Like I knew I was smarter than them. I didn't make good choices. I didn't have the insight of life experience to then make decisions that were rational based on cause and effect and consequence.
Yeah.
But I knew my brain could process information in a superior way. So having a conversation with a 18-year-old girl versus a 38-year-old woman, usually the conversation's easier with the 18-year-old girl because they're actually smarter and can keep up with the conversation better. They don't have their head filled with a bunch of false beliefs, and that they are emotionally attached to those false beliefs. Because to an 18-year-old, they're like, here is a doctor who's my parents' age. I'm going to listen to this person. Whereas to a 38-year-old, they're like, this is just some man. Men are stupid. Fuck men. They're not going to listen. Right. So it's like men are easier to communicate with because you don't have that barrier. But a teenage guy is still easier to communicate with when it comes to teaching information to than an older guy. Like the metric system is, whereas a kid will be willing to learn the metric system if you teach it to them. I find adults, they're like, I don't know the metric system. I was like, you kind of have to. And they're like, no, I'm not going to learn the metric system. I don't use that stuff. I was like, it's literally multiplying and dividing by 10. It's a log-based 10 system. It doesn't get simpler than that. And they're like, yeah, but I don't really care. I was like, you have to use this medication, which is measured in milligrams. And you can't just, are you going to pay $100 to call me on the phone to have me calculate out what you're supposed to do every time you get a bottle in the mail? Yeah. It's just like, just learn the metric system and do the conversions and do the math, but they're just not having it.
Yeah.
So I've created it's like this thing with patients where they want to call to figure out how to do the math every single time they get a new medication. And it's like, I don't understand how you can't do this.
Yeah. It gives so much independence to be able to do it yourself. You kind of don't even realize it. You know, you might be a kid in middle school and your teacher's, you know, working you through some basic arithmetic, and you're like, okay, like whatever. I don't really, you know, I don't know how applicable this is on my day-to-day basis. And then you actually get to that point and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I actually do need to make sure that I'm confident in such basic things as like multiplying and dividing, and just understanding a concentration is just a number of milligrams divided by some kind of volumetric measurement, right? And to wrap your head around that, and then once you have that, it's freeing, it's independent. You can now work it and do it yourself. But then there are a lot of people who they don't want to do that work, just like what you're saying. They want to get on a call with you. They're like, I don't want to deal with this. Someone else do it for me, right? So thankfully, there's now like some calculators that are popping up online. I know that my my peptide business that I work with as one of the affiliates, they're creating a phone app that you can use for oils or for peptides or anything like that, just to make sure that you're getting the measurements right. And so for a lot of people that are trying to use guys like us as personal calculators, it's nice that they will actually have a robot to do that for them. And just what you're saying about like younger people, their brains are 100% more malleable. You'll notice that when guys are older and stuck in their ways, that's a real thing. It takes a certain growth mindset to pull out of that and actually start realizing, okay, there's more than one way to skin a cat, or maybe the ways that I've been taught for however many years are actually wrong. And it's kind of like what you said. I think a little bit, you were talking about how they tie their emotions to that knowledge. It feels like a personal attack when you're telling them that something is wrong.
Like bench presses are for retards. Like the flat barbell bench press is for powerlifting meets. It is fucking useless otherwise. You're better off with dumbbells or an incline or a machine with converging arms. That it is an option if you have an axle and two pieces of concrete and you're in the middle of a third world country and that's all you've got. But if you're at a commercial gym and you're walking past the hammer strength, past the Panada, past the Prime to go use a fucking barbell in 2023, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, all the Generation Z people are doing all these technical lifts that are like really specific and really like there's an army of 16 and 17-year-old girls who lift better than any man did 10 years ago.
Exactly.
It's like they've got fucking perfect bench form. They're like doing arch back, like doing perfect fucking barbell form for a powerlifting meet. And it's like, you don't have a shirt on. They're like, what do you mean I don't have a shirt on? I'm like, you have a shirt on, but you don't have a bench shirt on. The form you're using is for equipped powerlifting meets. Like that is a perfect arch, but that serves no purpose for growing your chest. Like that's just for leveraging the load up. They're like, I don't give a fuck. I want to be strong. It's like, okay, talk to me when you hurt your shoulder, your wrist, and we'll find something better for you to do.
Yeah.
And then, like 6 months later, it's like, I'm not progressing and everything hurts. It's like, okay, now we're going to teach you how to do bodybuilding. Right. You're going to realize powerlifting's dumb, but bodybuilding's cool.
Yeah. That's where you got to specify the goals, at least for these kinds of people. It's like, okay, there's a really big term, especially like guys my age, they talk about power building, where they're trying to do this, best of both worlds combination of bodybuilding and powerlifting. And at a certain point, it's like, you might be a jack of all trades, master of none. You're not really going to be the best power builder. Like one good example is Stan Efferding, who probably had the biggest total of any professional bodybuilder, I think. And that's because he had periods of time where he would commit 100% to one thing and 100% to another thing. And just genetically, he's built like an ox. He can lift whatever he wants.
But he had small legs.
What's that?
He had small legs.
Yeah, there's that too.
So it's like he didn't win anything as a bodybuilder because his legs weren't big, because powerlifting doesn't build big legs. Yep. You need volumes and sets to build leg size. And it's like Michael Hearn epitomized this too. If the power building is his thing, it's just like, motherfucker's just strong. He's genetically strong bodybuilder.
Yep.
And he's doing traditional lifts because he's old. There's actually like Dr. Israel brought up a point that, and like sometimes like I actually learned it from Dr. Karina Dodson, who's my coaching business partner. But like when I heard Israel say it, it's like, okay, that's where it makes a little different sense. I have to hear it from at least two people before I accept it, because I'm old and I'm set in my ways. Is that I used to believe that you got a bigger muscle by getting stronger with that muscle in a hypertrophy rep range. Right. So if you could do 100 pounds for 8 reps, and then you're doing 150 pounds for 8 reps, you should have a bigger muscle. But I had it backwards. It isn't because you're stronger, the muscle's bigger. It's because the muscle's bigger, you are now stronger. And that fatigue is a function of load times volume, right? So if you could get 20-inch arms from using a 30-pound dumbbell or a 50-pound dumbbell, you will be better off using the 30-pound dumbbell to get the same 20-inch arms, because there's less fatigue, which means it has less systemic fatigue, which means it allows other body parts to grow at a faster rate.
Yeah.
So that being naturally strong is a liability, not an asset.
Yeah. That's what I have seen. I know Broderick Chavez is someone who's a big mentor of mine, and he's talked about how he has these guys who are just genetic little freaks, and they will step into the gym and overreach every single day because they know that their bodies they can throw all this weight around all day long, but rather than that all translating into more muscle size and making them building them a better physique, it ends up translating more over to injuries than anything else, or just to general systemic fatigue. These guys burn out really, really fast, as opposed to the guy who has kind of that more volume style approach, or at least can get more out of less, just like what you're saying.
When I hit 41, I started falling apart. Like I was used to doing like the power building approach, where a set of 6 to 8, back off set of 10 to 12, next exercise, right? 2 sets per exercise. I wasn't doing bench, squat, deadlift. I was doing Smith bench incline, Smith squat with my feet forward, Smith bent rows, and Smith rack pulls, right? So it's a little bit, it's still got some masculinity to it, but it's still got the safety and efficiency of a machine. And I was spending $600 a month on massages, right? And I was so much pain, I couldn't go up and down stairs. And, you know, then a year later, I started doing things slower, right? After a big hamstring tear, I started training slower and just slowing the eccentric down, pausing at the bottom, pausing, doing everything I can to make the rep harder. And all my numbers came down. I actually lost a little bit of size, but then I built up and my strength was almost as high as it used to be. Like on an incline bench going quick, I could do 315 for 9 off the chest or 10. But with the end of the last meso, not the meso I'm in, but the meso before that, it was 305 for 7 with a 2-second eccentric, a pause at the bottom and a pause at the top. So instead of a rep being 2 seconds, the rep's 5 seconds. And it's 305, not 315, and the 7, not 9. But the point is that technically it's probably stronger. And so same thing with the squats. Like instead of dive bombing 455 for 9, I'm going slow, pause at the bottom, up, slow, pause at the bottom, up, the same 455 for 8. And I rebuilt everything from scratch using tempo and really focusing on tempo, which incidentally increased my time under tension from like 15 seconds to 40 seconds per set with about the same load. So I'm bigger and stronger in some respects, although the number on the bar isn't exactly as high. It's 96% or 97% of the load, or it's 88% of the reps with the same load. But the basically gist of it is I don't need massages anymore. I'm never really sore anymore. I basically move around like I'm 10 or 15 years younger than I was. So like at 44, I'm moving more limberly than I was at like 41. At 41, I was like an old man. I'd grunt every time I got out of a chair. If I had a girlfriend at the time, they'd make fun of me. They're like, oh, that's so sexy listening to you moan and groan like you're 70 when you get out of the chair, Mr. Athlete. You know, like they just give you the biggest shit over it.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't let me catch you. It's like, give me my walker so I can beat you with it, you know. But it's like, whereas now I can run up and down the flight of stairs. I don't have to worry about muscle cramps and shit. So lifting a new way is hard to do. It took a couple years for me to relearn how to lift, but I really think that whereas explosive shit can work when someone's young and sets of 3 and 5 can work, that once you hit 30, you should be doing no less than 6 sets. Once you hit 35, you should be doing no less than 8 reps. And then, you know, 40, once you hit 40, probably no less than 10 reps. And you just have to just accept it that you're going to grow a little bit slower, but you're going to have a better quality of life.
Yeah, without a doubt. That is a big question that floats around is because I know that Paul talks about this kind of thing where like, you know, you do Dante's stuff and it will make you really, really strong, but obviously that will tear you apart if your body's not ready for that. And so it leads to the question of like, all right, if I'm young enough and I have the capacity to probably survive that kind of training style, should I take advantage of that right now? Or should I lean more into that same longevity approach of like slower tempo, like more volume?
So Israel teaches that like he's got 3 phases, right? There's the 5 to 10 rep range, which is mostly type 2 fiber growth and a mechanical tension growth. That's the fastest way to grow, but the most prone to injury. But if you're not prone to injury, it's just the fastest way to grow. Then there's the 11 through 20 zone, which is a good blend of mechanical tension and metabolites. And then there's the 21 plus zone, 21 to 30 zone of reps. That's just metabolite. And even if you hit failure in this zone, the amount of metabolites that have accumulated in the presynaptic cleft or whatever will gum up the acetylcholine binding to the nicotinic receptors, and you won't get that good of a muscle contraction. So you really can't grow the same. So what the smart thing to do is do your heavy sets first, then your normal hypertrophy sets, then do 1 or 2 super high rep set, even if it's by means of superset or drop set or myo reps, which is also called muscle rounds. Whereas that approach of doing all 3 ranges works really well. Now that is similar to dog crap. Dog crap will be a set of 5 to 7 with a rest pause, right? 1 set of 5 to 7 with a rest pause, maybe a back off set. And then you get to single joint exercises and it'll be 10 to 15 reps with a rest pause. And then you'll get to your final exercise of the day. It might be 16 to 20 reps with 2 rest pauses. So it's not really that different. She's just taking advantage of the rest pause, which drives up the systemic and fatigue through the roof. But it's also, you've got 1 set. So if you count each rest pause as an additional set, it's 2 sets, 3 sets, 4 sets.
Yeah.
It's just that the rest periods are 15 deep breaths. 15 deep breaths is 45 seconds. That's another set. Yeah. And it's really no different than the myo reps that Israel teaches.
Okay.
And it's very similar to how Dorian Yates trained. He just had something like he would do rest pauses. He would do forced reps, then forced negatives, then rest pauses. So you'd have 3 different types of set extenders on the same set.
Yeah.
And it required a partner, which means you have to have a responsible, attentive partner. So like one that's not going to be on their cell phone or answering text messages and shit. Someone who knows how to apply just the right amount of force. So the force negative takes 6 seconds.
Yeah.
So
Dorian
if you
and Leroy were definitely a legendary duo.
Yeah. So and he only had that Leroy in for that video.
No way, really?
Yeah. They never trained together before that. They just, Leroy
funny.
was that loud. They shot the video first in color without Leroy, and it was so boring and crappy. And then they shot it with Leroy, and it was exciting. And then he saw it went black and white. He's like, this looks way more intense. So they went with that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a funny story. Jeez.
Yeah. So it's studio magic, even though the rawest video of all time had 2 layers of studio magic to make it raw.
It's all fake, man, especially these days. Like every kid on social media that's like actually big is just Photoshop, or they're lying about this. So,
dude, someone showed to me like how the filter works on the phone. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, so that's like the Alex Eubanks trick.
Yeah.
Because the dude's like a toothpick, but like when you look at him in his posts, he looks like he's a Greek god. And it's just because you turn the contrast all the way up or whatever, the shadows all the way up.
Yeah, that's like, exactly that. Filters. And then, I mean, he has Photoshop before, that Alex Eubank kid. So he's like, brought out his shoulders and shrunk his waist a little bit. And you sell your soul for success a little bit if you're in that path. I mean, now he has like millions upon millions, partially owns a supplement company, like little 170-pound kid.
I don't know, man. Have you ever been on a date with a girl and she looked like a 10 in her picture? And then you get there and she's 10 to 50 pounds heavier and 10 to 20 years older. They go from a 10 to a 2. That's not even dating apps. It's just like their normal profile pics on Facebook or Instagram. They use Snapchat to take the picture, makes them a knockout. You meet them in person and you wish you were drunk to the point where you're blacked out. And it's like, you're like, oh man, I'm already here. I might as well. Fuck.
Oh, God.
It's like, I don't drink. I don't know how I'm going to make this girl pretty. But it's like, too bad they don't have filters in real life. But to me, I don't like that feeling. And what's even funnier is you show up and you look exactly like you do in your picture, if not better, because you're 3-dimensional. And guys are always more muscular in person than they are in pictures because muscles are 2-dimensional, go to 3-dimensional.
Yep.
They're like, because they show up unprepared.
Yeah.
Like, because they know they're not going to look like their picture, so they don't even do their hair or makeup, right?
Yeah.
And then you're looking exactly like you do in your picture, but you're three-dimensional. And they're like, oh my God, he didn't use a filter or anything. Like he really looks like that.
Like he's the
And,
real
and,
deal. Wait, no
and
way.
it was just like, and then I'm nice enough not to say shit. I'm just like, hey, what's up? How you doing? And pretend like I don't notice that they're way older and way heavier and than they were in their pictures.
Yeah.
But it's like that's the same thing. It's like you see like Alex Eubanks throws a picture up and you're like, what the fuck? And then they'll show a video of the boogeyman is in the same bathroom and he's taking a video of Alex shooting that picture on his Instagram, and you see Alex just looks like he's a skinny kid.
Yep, exactly.
With no definition at all.
Yep. And that's how it goes, especially like meeting guys in person. That was one of the biggest things for me because like I just live out here in Colorado. I'm in Boulder, and there's not that much of a fitness scene here. And so I don't really see actually big guys on a regular basis. And so I finally had a couple meetups with some of my brands. I see these guys on like online. The guys that are enhanced, you see them in person, they almost look bigger in person. And the guys that are natural, you see them in person, they look smaller. Curiously a lot smaller than they do on the internet.
So the natural guys look big because they're shredded, but you put a medium shirt on them and they just blend in with the crowd. Whereas enhanced dudes have a level of density and vascularity and inhuman muscle tissue that you will not see in real life, a ratio of the muscle to fat that is not sustainable. Yep. And they have this three-dimensional effect to where the distance from this to the back of the trap is so thick that like they look normal from the front, but they turn to the side and then there's like this shelf there that actually just looks inhuman. Like the gap here where the tank top doesn't actually touch anymore.
It just
because
floats.
It floats from the trap and then pulled from the, so there's like a space to stick your thumb through there. You don't see that on normal humans.
No, never do.
Yeah. And so that's like the type of shit. And it's like, when I take a picture of I'm like, I'll like to have a pump and I'll be like, I look fucking incredible. I'll take a picture of the pump and I'll look at my picture. I'm like, I look like Tim Burton's lawn gnome. I was like, there's nothing intimidating about this picture at all. I just look like a fucking character out of a fantasy game. Dressed like a child. Like I've got this shirt on that's down to my knees because it has to be big enough for my shoulders.
Yep. Yeah. And they that's like another interesting thing is it's almost like a skill to have the lighting and angles in order to post on social media and at least like adequately represent your physique. Because I know guys that look disgusting. I mean, they eat, sleep, and breathe bodybuilding, and social media is an afterthought for them. And so as a result, like they post their pictures, they post their check-in pictures. Obviously, they're going to look great, but they're not abusing the, you know, the downlighting, the filters, the exact posing, like the angles, all of these things that some other guys are, and it brings them to this whole other level. With the way that you kind of got to like make money off of things that aren't exactly bodybuilding anymore. You know, there's not like the magazines and stuff. It's all just, it's internet, man. It's weird.
So what I found was, if you want it to look good, find a teenager to take the picture because they know how to work your phone better than you.
Yeah.
And if you want the picture to look cool to men, it has to be a guy who takes the picture. And if you want to look good for the picture for girls, you have to have a woman take the picture.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's so obvious after I say it, but it's like, you're not going to put gym selfies up on your dating app. You would find a female friend who's heterosexual, take pictures of you for the dating profile and have her build your profile.
Yeah.
You know,
it's all in the eye of the beholder. And then they just like take what they know about the landscape and then they just apply it to, you know, your circumstance. Set yourself up so that you look good.
Same thing like with you. Like if I wanted to really, if I had like, was like, okay, I'm going to really launch my social media to the next level. I'd find someone who's young and who's good at social media. And I'd be like, I want you to take pictures of me and I want you to run my social media.
Yeah.
All right. And then you can build it up and make it look good because I'll just lift the fucking weights and write the copy. And then you can edit that shit so it's less offensive, you know? Same thing like like those like your reels. I would have to pay somebody to do the reels to look as good as the ones you do. Right. And then I would just come up with a spiel to come up with in like a 3-minute thing, kind of like Joe Bennett, the hypertrophy coach, right? It's like, make it entertaining, because I think Joe Bennett and Mike Israetel are really funny. I think the most important thing for social media is that you're entertaining. Yeah. And then the second most important thing is that the content's true. And then the third most important thing is that it's deeper or more unique than your competitors. Because people like Russell Brand are the leading journalist because he's entertaining. Yeah. Ben Shapiro is a leading journalist because he's entertaining. Brett Cooper is a leading journalist because she's entertaining. Yeah. Mike Israetel is a leading fitfluencer because he's entertaining. Joe Bennett is the leading guy because he's entertaining. You take people who are really smart but aren't entertaining, or who are angry, and then even if they're entertaining but they're angry, it turns people off, and then they'll never get anywhere.
You have a certain person in mind when you say that?
Well, what's funny about, I almost said it, Vicky, because she's like an ex-girlfriend, is like, what's funny about Vicky is I saw a lot of my old bad traits in him squared, but I could see where I went wrong before, because if I'm frustrated and a jerk in the video and being negative or making fun of people or putting people down, the comments again, the comment section are angry. If I'm happy and cheerful and in a great mood, then the comments in the comment section are positive. Yeah. So my mood will infect the audience. Right. And I will put them in that mood, and people don't want to walk away from your video feeling like shit. They're not going to want to hire you or have anything to do with you.
Yeah. And that's where there's some guys, especially in this space, that they like to leverage the drama in order to, pull a little bit of the controversy and get themselves out there more. But thinking that all that negative attention is actually doing you any favors, I think in the long run is doing yourself a disservice. There might be a time and a place for that kind of thing to occur and to happen, and you can twist it in a positive light after the fact. But for the most part, I mean, just picking fights with people is really not the way to go about things, and making content that is, taking attacks at people or, being aggressive in any way, shape, or form. It's going to create a fan base that has those similar ideals and feelings about things. You don't want your workplace to be a space where you go in and you're bombarded with hate comments and negativity and arguing. And, my blood pressure is as high as it is. Like, I don't need that to be any higher. Right.
I think the best example would be like the petting zoo field trip, right? There's a girl has a really pretty dress. She goes to the petting zoo field trip. Everyone's paying attention to her. They think she's got a pretty dress. Then there's some other girl who's mad that girl's getting all the attention. So she pushes that girl in the mud. And now everyone's paying attention to her because she's a bitch who pushed some other girl in the mud. Yeah. And the girl has a muddy dress. No one's going to pay attention to the muddy dress anymore. So she got people to stop paying attention to the girl in the pretty dress. And now everyone's paying attention to her. It's negative attention, but for unhealthy people, negative attention is better than no attention. Yeah. What that little girl doesn't realize is she's not going to be invited on any more field trips. Not if she does that type of shit on a regular basis. She's going to have to stay home or go to detention or the principal's office while everyone else gets to go on the field trips. Yep. And I feel like these people, once they get their show canceled, that's when they're like, oh, maybe everyone was right and what I was doing was wrong. But it takes the extreme punishment of having your monetary income taken away completely before they realize they have to change their behavior and start acting like an adult and participate in the community on some of the grounds that the community agrees to communicate on.
Yeah, you got to put yourself in that position where you understand it's not sustainable at all. You can't continue to act like that and be like that. And so then the opposite side of the spectrum is like, if you are someone who's putting yourself out there in a positive light, and then you can start twisting your content to be a little entertaining and get people invested in you. This is a really tricky thing to do as a, educator in the space, because a lot of the time people aren't really interested in us as people, but mostly just in what can we provide them. Right. What's that like perfect next compound that I need to add to my stack? Or like, I'm having trouble with this. Like, do you have the solution? it's not about, you know, the identity of the person. It's more about like what you're going to give them. So I think with guys like Mike Israetel, it's like there might not be any topic in the video that's particularly relevant for your current daily life, but Mike's a funny guy.
Right.
If there's a new Mike video, it's like, yeah, I'll probably watch this while I'm having a meal, something like that. And once you build up that kind of persona, then you're in a really, really good spot. Whereas, you know, I spoke with Vigorous Steve. I was on his podcast the other day. He's talked about how he wants to like make training videos and just like connect with his audience on things besides enhancements. And it's really tricky to break out of that super hyper specific niche that you're already in.
I started doing videos, I think 14 years ago. So I luckily have some momentum in that. Like I was banned for 5 years. I was lifetime banned, and I wasn't even allowed to legally use YouTube. Like that's how much I got banned. I wasn't like a little Tony Huge band where it's like, oh, just start up a new channel. Fuck it. You know, it wasn't like that. You're like, you will never, we will cut your hand off if you ever touch a keyboard again. Like I was some type of cyber terrorist, but it was like, but they lifted that, and I was like, fuck it, I'll just start over. And so I have different channels for different things. So this is the Anabolic University. This is the gear channel. Then there's a training channel and nutrition channel that I haven't really been working on lately, but it exists. So that's kind of a way of doing it is you've got white, gray, and black, like PG-13, and then R-rated channels. And that's not supposed to be a racial correspondence. That's supposed to be a purity thing. But I guess I just got canceled. I know it. There's no way to salvage this. Speaking of black, so you do really good black metal vocals.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't say that they're particularly black metal. It's interesting because I got into the vocal scene by listening to a lot of post-hardcore. And so a lot of the, you know, like mid 2000s, like early 2000s, like emo type stuff. That was the vocal kind of thing that draw me to it. So I started off learning the fry screams, and then, you know, it's like, I'm already in this space. Let's see if I'd be able to do the gutturals as well. And then getting into those false chord screams, that was really fun. And so a lot of the things that I do, just the way that my body is, which is funny, just like bodybuildings, there's like genetics for screams too. My screams are like disproportionately distorted, and they sound really like rough. And so perfect for black metal. I have no idea what I'm saying, but it's just like a little white noise in the background. It's great.
It's funny because your vocals reminded me kind of like Gorgoroth. Pest, who is the vocalist for Gorgoroth about 20 years ago, from the main album, Gorgoroth's main album, Under the Sign of Hell, the one that they did a remake of. So that's kind of reminded me of those vocals. And the vocalist for Anal Nathrak, actually, Anal Nathrak is almost like that album Gorgoroth clone band, and they've got 10 albums. So if you like that one
album and then like,
and they made like 10 albums out of it.
No way.
Yeah, wow. It's kind of like how Hecate Enthroned sounds like really early Cradle of Filth.
Okay.
Like it's like, let's take the best parts of Dusk in Her Embrace and then make a band out of it and then do 10 albums. And that's Hecate Enthroned.
That's one of the coolest things, especially if it happens to be an album that you're really interested in.
Right.
And then you find out somewhere along the way, you're like, well, hold on a second. Actually, a lot of their songs, if not all of their songs, are smack dab exactly channeling the exact energy that you got out of that album that you really liked.
Another good example is Parasite Inc. is like the third Children of Bodom album, but it's the whole band. Every album they make is just the third. What do you call it? The third Children of Bodom album.
Huh.
Yeah, or maybe the fourth. It's just like second period transition to the second period of Children of Bodom. And that's just like, if you like that stuff before it got a little softer, if you like not the original black metal version of Yngwie Malmsteen from their first two albums, but their third and fourth album was where they started to have their own sound. Parasite Inc. sounds exactly like that third and fourth album of Children of Bodom.
So what's been your history with metal? Like, were you listening to it when you were a kid, or did it kind of like, no way, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So like, what got you into it? And
all right, so
how did it evolve over time?
This is a funny story. So I got my first Slayer album when I was like 9 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
And we had cassettes, right?
Yeah.
And so I put the cassette in and I was listening to it, and I was listening to it alone. And I was just like, I was getting scared, and I had this weird feeling coming over me. Like it was like a transcendent spiritual feeling. And I was like, I'm summoning the devil into my chest or something. Like, I feel like I am committing a mortal sin by listening to this. So I took the tape out, put it in this. I've hid it under my Garbage Pail Kids, which I don't know if you know what a Garbage Pail Kids are, but like, there's Cabbage Patch Dolls. You remember what Cabbage Patch Dolls were? Okay. So Garbage Pail Kids were kind of like this hyperbolic satire way of making fun of Cabbage Patch Dolls. So like girls had Garbage Patch Dolls. So the boy version were these trading cards with that basically you could peel it off as a sticker. And it was like these deformed children that were like mutilated and like ground up into stuff. Like Odd Todd was basically Quasimodo. And so it was like a name, and then it was some kind of a contraction. Like, and on the back, it was something really funny where it's like so-and-so was so stupid, she thought that the bacteria was the back of the cafeteria. And it showed some girl eating like dead rats in the back of the classroom cafeteria. So I had this drawer that was just the Garbage Pail Kids drawer. And I stuck my Slayer album under that. And like I got like into lighter stuff like Iron Maiden, and eventually Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, the big thrash bands, Pantera. And then although Pantera was never considered one of the big four thrash bands, it basically became the fifth thrash band. No one knew what Testament was. Then I got into Sepultura, and then from Sepultura I got into Morbid Angel, and then I got back into Slayer. And that's around the time I started playing guitar. So my guitar sound is like the fourth Deicide album, Serpents of the Light. So that the tone from Serpents of the Light and this playing style of that album, the Hoffman brothers, that's what I sound like. So I'm like a really ghetto rhythm guitar player from the late 90s. I never evolved. I'm not like Tim Henson from Polyphia. I'm not a gifted, brilliant virtuoso with a guitar. I'm basically just like an ice pick to the forehead type guitar player. But I'm really good at making the guitar sound heavy and clear at the same time. Like I'm good with gear tech, and I'm good with a right hand rhythm, so I can play fast and it sounds heavy. So I basically why I'd make a good rhythm guitar player is I can play fast and heavy. And then I got into black metal once I started getting out of high school and into college. Specifically started with Cradle of Filth because it was just, I hated it at first. I hated his vocals, and then it just grew on me, and it was so weird. It started sounding so good. Cruelty and the Beast is one of the greatest albums of all time. And I branched out from there, and I'm one of the only Gen Xers I know that likes the new shit more than the old shit. So the new Lorna Shore comes out, it's my favorite album of all time. The new Shadow of Intent comes out, favorite album of all time. New Infinite Annihilator comes out, favorite. So I'm all about the deathcore scene now. They're so good that, and then you go back and listen to old stuff like fucking Deicide, and I'm like, this is still fucking awesome to listen to. It's just so primitive and so slow compared to the super technical shit that they have nowadays.
Exactly. And you've like watched it all evolve. It's interesting for me because I never grew up in that scene, so I didn't get to watch. It's not like I started out with the older stuff and then like got into it later on. Probably my first exposure was just like my dad had a Linkin Park CD and my mom told me not to listen to it, and then of course I listened to it.
It's so funny.
And then and that was like the eye-opening moment that's like, oh wait, there's more music than just what's on the radio and like Katy Perry and whatever. Like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. And then I went from there until eventually circling back to finding more bands. I was in middle school, someone was telling me about Pierce the Veil, and they had some overlap in the deathcore community. Like for whatever reason, the deathcore community loves Pierce the Veil a little bit. Some guys do at least. And then then on, there's a Pierce the Veil is like mostly like little emo boy stuff.
I'll still check it out.
A lot of clean vocals,
at these chicks on the
all that kind of stuff. But like, let's see, where did I go from there? I had this phase where I was in college, and I was like, I just got into college. I start looking for metal bands because I just had a feeling that I would connect with them. And so it's just like your first experience where like I started listening to them. I'm like, wow, this sounds horrible. Like, I don't really know if I like this that much, but I kept listening to like all these different albums because the genre is like, you know, it's like Yggdrasil, the number of little branches and trees off of
The
it. Like,
fact that you fucking mentioned Yggdrasil, yeah, it's like I
it's
actually can do. That would be a cool video to do. Is the history of metal, and I actually have it categorized like starting in 1967
oh yeah,
with
yeah,
Inagata Davida, and then Deep Purple, and then Black Sabbath, and then branching out from there, and then where the branch roots come from. Like
yeah,
Effigy of the Forgotten was the first proto slam album, and Seven Churches was the first proto death metal album. Like I've got it
right.
all mapped out in my head. Yeah.
So then, like, definitely deathcore became one of the primary ones because that's just the most fun to do vocals over, is because they are, you know, the most aggressive, the most distorted, like, and it's a similar style to something like black metal, but then I don't know, something about the guitars, the drums, exactly what you're saying, like how technical it is. It's so much more energizing for certain purposes. And like Infinite Annihilator, absolutely so much fun. Obviously the
Yeah.
lyrics are a little questionable, but it's they're fun
Good
stuff.
thing no one can understand what the fuck people are saying.
Yeah, exactly.
And the cool thing about deathcore bands is that they have a vocalless version. So, like, if there's a girl that you wanted to impress with, you want to hear some really good drumming, you take the instrumental version of like Cunt Crusher,
Yeah,
and you play that, and they don't know what the song is called, and they're like, "That's the most impressive drumming I've ever heard." I'm like, "That's
yeah,
13 years ago. That's 13 years ago. That would be like a horse and buggy." Because that's how much metal's evolved in 13 years. And it's like now you can play Shadow of Intent with no vocals. And so they're like, they don't hate it. So once someone doesn't hate it, then you can start to introduce a little bit of vocals and it actually will jive, right? So the best
yeah.
way to do this is Pain Remains with the lyrics, since it's a ballad and it's slow.
Okay.
And then so they can listen to this pain and anguish of losing his wife to cancer, and they're reading it and they're crying, and now they'll want to listen to more Lorna Shore. So like
Yeah.
Lorna Shore is the gateway drug to get girls into metal.
Yeah, it's like all plotted out, right? Like,
Yeah,
okay, we
like
need
a
to ease them in very gently, and then now they're like not all like, what is this screaming shit all about? Like,
no,
because
you
I've
don't.
I've had my fair share of
Yeah,
that.
and they always like, oh, all I hear is screaming. It's like because
Yes.
their verbal intelligence is off the charts. Our left brain attaches to math. Their left
Yeah.
brain attaches to verbal intelligence, right? So when they listen to music, they hear lyrics. When I
Hmm.
listen to music, I hear guitars and drums, and then
Yeah.
there's some sissy whining about his feelings, right? But with the screaming, it just becomes screaming becomes a different instrument, and the human
Yes.
voice, and
Exactly.
it's my left brain doesn't get distracted by the fucking words, right?
Yeah.
So I get to listen to the instruments. So once you take away the words, they have no choice but to listen to the music, and
Yeah.
their left brain gets accustomed to like, this is what's happening. These are drums, and these are the feet, and these are the hands, and these
Right.
are the cymbals. And then there's a rhythm, there's a bass guitar, and then an octave up from that's a rhythm guitar, and then an
Yeah.
octave up from that in the same key as the lead guitar, and the lead guitar carries the melody, and then the drummer duels with the lead guitar for the fills for center stage, and all this is a lot to process without even having fucking words,
Yeah.
right? Because there's
Exactly.
so much going on, it basically just makes people bleed out of their nose. It's like doing math, like trying to figure out how many milligrams you're supposed to use, but with
Yeah. They
sound.
were full circle.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like then once you introduce lyrics later, I
Yeah.
found that Bellacore, because it's super low vocals, kind of like Michael Ackerfeld from Opeth,
Hmm.
but it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't have the sissy singing stuff that Opeth does. Bellacore is like the good parts of Opeth
Yeah.
without the sissy parts of Opeth.
Yeah.
If you take, and then if you don't want to do Pain Remains because it's screeching, if you go for the low vocals like Bellacore, because it's soothing, they won't mind it because they've
Mm.
already gotten into the music part of it. So that you go
Yeah.
from like, or like if someone's really likes weird shit, you could go with Rings of Saturn with no vocals. The
Mm.
instrumental stuff. That's what's so cool about deathcore is they've got no vocals. Finally. So if you want to get on stage and actually perform on stage, if you don't want the whole audience, you go, ew, screaming, that you basically can play some deathcore shit with no vocals, And it can be dramatic, or it can be fast, it can be energized, it can be any of those things.
Yeah. Gives the vocalist a nice break too. I mean, you're not thrashing your vocal cords that much between songs, like take a little instrumental break and then like start into another one and actually start screaming again. But I have never heard someone explain it better than by saying that the screaming is like another instrument, because that is exactly what it feels like. You'll hear like all of the things kind of overlapping. I'm a very visual person. And so normally when I'm listening to a song first, I like to predict like where the note progression is going to go. And because there's certain things that could sound good. And then I like make little paths in my head of like, all right, there's these different permutations of like where they could go next.
Like
And
Doctor Strange calculating out the Thanos fight.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
There's
exactly.
alternate realities. There's a break point, and then you got parallel realities where they're going to do a ascension over here or a descension over there.
Yeah, and so there, there's like little breaks in a deathcore song where it's like, okay, like a little crescendo, and then there's like a temporary pause, maybe building for something, and then you like wait for the exact moment, you get the prediction.
It's going to be a breakdown right there.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're like, you're gearing up for a set, you're just like right about grabbing the bar, getting ready, and then the second it hits, you're in the set. There's nothing else that matters. Right. There's no feeling quite like that. Absolutely.
I used to have something called the solo rule, whereas if a solo hits, you can't end the set until the solo's done. So you just have to keep doing a regression drop set or running the rack or whatever.
Yeah.
So like obviously on Megadeth Tornado of Souls, it's like if you solo hits in the middle of Tornado of Souls, you've got 2 minutes of running the rack or drop sets to do. Like you pretty much have to drop and do push-ups. Like there's no way that's right. Marty Friedman's 4 back-to-back solos is going to be, it's going to be a while.
That's a heck of a way to do a little finisher at the end of your workout. Just pull up Megadeth and just sign up for the ride.
It's the best album. Let's rest in peace, man. So yes. And so what's funny is, like you said, I got to watch the evolution of metal. I got to watch the evolution of the guitar too, as it went. So I remember when the 7th string came out. I remember when people started doing drop tuning on the 7th string. I remember people started tuning so low that they switched to 8 string. And then there's Jared Dines with his 27 string guitar, like, and the shit's just silly. And now that metal's so big, you have metal musicians making guitars like Ola England. Whereas like back in the day, we used to have to use a Marshall half stack with a Metal Zone, Boss Metal Zone pedal and a BC Rich guitar. And there was no other options really. You could go with a Randall head or the Blue Voodoo, which was Marty Friedman's, but you basically, death metal is made with thrash equipment.
Yeah.
Now there is death metal and deathcore specific equipment, and everything's done on computers. Like the drum program they use is based off of the Bleed Meshuggah album, where the drumming that most popular drum synth software is actually that. I think his name's Tom, who's the drummer for Meshuggah. So, yeah, I watch like interviews with death metal people and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm so passionate about metal. Like this, I could talk about metal all fucking day.
Well, one of the biggest like moments of evolution is 100% when I first discovered Polyphia, and I didn't realize that the experimental and technicality could go that far. And you're like, wow, okay, this guy looks a little young to have that much expertise.
He's like a child.
Yeah,
it's exactly. It's like Tim Henson and Scott LePage, and Scott LePage is in Tim Henson's shadow, and Scott LePage is like the second best guitar player on the planet. Like, and it's not even music I like. Like, I don't like this at all, but it's so fucking amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Just a spectacle, honestly.
Yeah, it's just it's nuts. And then like that what is it called? Like Ego Death, when Steve Vai jumped in for that song, and Steve Vai was on their song. There was a big single about 6 months to a year ago, and they show up Steve Vai, and it's like Steve Vai invented the 7 string in '87. Like 35 years ago, this man invented the 7 string guitar.
Yeah,
he is like just under Joe Satriani as like the great, and Eddie Van Halen in that type of lineage. And I think a lot of people don't realize that either. It's just like people don't realize like wizards learn from wizards.
Yeah.
Like Harry Potter learned from Dumbledore, and Dumbledore learned from Grindelwald or whatever like that. It's like the drummers, like Pete Sandoval taught Tim the Bullet Yessian. And like by knowing what someone's pedigree is, you can predict what they're going to sound like before they come out with. And then when the super groups form, like we're going to take this drummer from this band and this guitar player from this band and the prodigy of this guy from this band and put them together. And it's like, sounds so exciting. Like, oh my God, I can't imagine what they're going to sound like. Who's the producer? And it's like, we got Eric Rutan on production. And it's like, oh my God, this is going to be so fucking heavy.
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing is watching that talent kind of compound over generations.
Yes.
So there will be that like initial wizard who did a lot of figuring out himself. All of that information is now available. And then who's that second guy who takes everything he has, builds upon it, and it continually is passed down. Exactly what you're saying about Eric Vai. Like he was the guy, and then now there are new guys who are showing him up on stage. That is going to continue to happen. It happens like in every space. So watching something that you're so passionate about evolve almost faster than you can comprehend, it's just crazy. You know, like you wonder what the finish line is going to look like.
It's the same thing with bodybuilding. And that's something that people try to understand is people are like, someone will be like, why do you listen to this? After like, they're like, let me listen to your headphones. And they're like, ew, why do you listen to this? And it's like, do you understand how fucking hard it is to do that?
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And I was like, to play drums so fast, it sounds like a lawnmower is raping a vacuum cleaner. I was like, that is so hard to do. That's like this. And I'll point to the cover of like the Flex magazine that I was reading. I was like, that dude is your music. This dude is my music.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I never thought of it that way. I was like, drumming specifically, metal in general, but drumming specifically is competitive instrumentation. Yeah. It's just like the arms race is who can play the fastest, most technical shit ever. And then every album, like Archspire, people complained, you're too fast. So they came out with an album that was even faster. They broke the world record for drumming with like 340 beats per minute with 16th notes or some shit. So what is that? That's like 1,440 notes per minute. So that's like 20 notes a second or something like that, 24 notes a second. And I was like, he broke the world, and the guitar players are keeping up with them too. It's not like they're in a different timing. And it's like, he broke the world record. And so the next album's twice as fast. And then Lorna Shore's new album, 6 Amos, breaks down Austin Archie's drumming with 3 songs. He does like a reaction video to 3 songs, Cursed to Die, Something and Something. And he does them in an ascending order. So one's 240 beats per minute, one's 300 beats per minute, and one's like 360 beats per minute. So, and he's like flipping the fuck out watching this kid just play like he's bored out of his mind, playing at 340 or 360 beats per minute.
It's just unbelievable. Like, once you hit that point that you sound like a drum machine, then you're already not human. And then they go twice as fast. They go like way beyond that. Same thing with Infant Annihilator. Like I remember hearing it for the first time. I'm like, that's not actually a drummer. Like that's, you know, and
he was like 17.
Yeah. You watch a little clip of him playing it just like casually, you know, getting down to business. It's so wild.
That they never intended to be a real band. That one guy recorded the guitar tracks. Then he sent the MIDI over to his buddy and he recorded the drum tracks. And then they sent it to the other guy. He put the vocals on it. I think it was Dan Watson, who's now at Enterprise.
Oh, well now, he switched. Now he's Enterprise Earth. Yeah.
Yep. And so then that shit gets released. And that was the fucking album that changed everything, because they're like, people are like, wait a minute, we don't have to tour. We don't have to play live. We can just release it on social media and make money off of downloads. And so like, then Shadow of Intent's basically the same thing. More high school kids, like, I'm going to record the rhythm and then cut, paste, cut, paste, cut, paste, cut, paste. I'm going to put a solo on top of it. That's the next line down. They use a computer to format all this shit.
Yeah.
And then they send the data over to the next guy who puts the bass tracks down. They send the data over to the next guy who lays the drum tracks down. They send the data over to the next guy who puts the vocals in. And then the first guy gets it and mixes it all. and rearranges it and gets all the levels and the mastering right. And then boom, it goes right up on Spotify.
So you have these like complete internet bands of a lot of guys who have never even met in person.
Right.
And they're just extremely talented. They happen to meet up with each other and basically come together and make something and then call it a day. I'm actually, it's really funny. I'm doing something similar with some guys in the fitness industry. We're gonna make a hardcore album. And so I'm gonna put my vocals over that. The guys, like, I got a couple of buddies on guitar, and then like another friend of mine who also does vocals. So we just need to find a drummer, which is always the hardest.
So who else is in your band?
We're putting things together right now. So really interesting. There's a kid called I think his Instagram title is hpar.gymspiration. His name is Hayden. He's 15 years old, like has bigger lifts than me at his age, very good physique, and he happens to be really into like the hardcore scene, a lot of metal, is very talented on guitar. And so he and I have talked music for a while, and then eventually we started talking like, oh, maybe we should actually make make songs out of this. So it's him and then another guy called Gabe Guinness. I think his tag on Instagram is Gabe No Victim, and he used to be in bands when he was younger, and so he's got the actual experience. As we've got those three right now. I know Gabe is probably just going to cameo on a couple tracks, probably won't be like on the whole thing, but will still be really, really cool to have him in. Those are the main guys. I mean, we got to just poke around. So maybe if this podcast comes out, there's a drummer that sees it. It's like, hey, I'll do it. That'll be pretty cool.
Well, like if you're not planning on touring, you can just program the drums.
That's the other thing that we were thinking about doing.
Then there's one less person to split the money with too.
Yeah. I mean, it'll probably just be for fun, but maybe Infinite Annihilator did the same thing. They're like, this would be funny.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like,
money off of it.
They didn't come out with a real album for 9 years after their first album, but that Cunt Crusher, the drum thing, just the drum playthrough, had like 17 million views. For metal, that's a lot. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, it's 10 years old, but it's still getting views because it's still more entertaining and more elaborate than any drumming anyone would ever seen in any other type of music outside of deathcore.
Yeah.
And then it's like, because he has jazz in there and all types of weird shit. It's like a 9-minute song with 14 movements. It's incredible. Right. And then it's comical too, because he's doing like comedy as he's doing drums. And like, then they come out with their most recent album, and it was the most savage shit that had ever been created ever. Like the video for Three Bastards is so fucking funny, where they're trying to make it like a gangster rap video, and they're dressed up like rappers and stuff, and they're dancing around like doing hip hop dances to like deathcore, and then they drink milk and throw up on each other. It's just like, they drink chocolate milk and then throw it up all over each other instead of like pouring out like malt liquor on bitches. It's like they're like drinking chocolate milk and then throwing up on the other one while he's twerking his fat ass and shit. It's just like, oh man, Infinite Annihilator is so much fun.
Yeah. And you imagine like watching the movie Whiplash and people are like, wow, that drumming is so impressive. And then you think to yourself, you're like, I don't know, I've seen some shit, man.
So that's like a lot. We covered so much cool shit. I don't know. I could talk about metal all fucking night. Look, what are your favorite bands?
So I would have to say Tomb Mold is definitely one of them. I do really like Tomb Mold.
Tomb Mold?
Tomb Mold.
Tomb Mold.
Yeah.
That sounds like a cool band name.
Yeah, it's really cool. Actually, all of their songs are based off of this one video game, which is really funny. So like they're kind of a joke band for that. And then
which video game?
Bloodborne. I don't know if you know that.
No.
So, yeah, so I see that you pulled them up there. That's definitely one of them. And I got into this habit of looking at a lot of kind of like random bands. So it's hard for me to like pick a solid favorite. I do really like Brand of Sacrifice. The vocalist for Brand of Sacrifice is crazy.
Yeah, Kyle Anderson's amazing. He did an interview with Punk Rock MBA that's really good. He had a completely different take than I expected him to be. Is that he listens to hip hop and pop music, and he actually, that's what he likes. And they did this band, a deathcore band, as a joke, and then it blew up. And so like he's like, oh, I'm in a deathcore band, but like he has an approach to it that he's kind of like, Will Ramos is kind of like the good guy of deathcore.
Yeah.
Like he's like as clean cut and vanilla perfect as you could possibly get.
Yeah.
Deathcore needs a villain.
Yeah.
And
There
so
you
like
go.
he also was like, he's like, people used to have costumes when they got on stage. Like Kiss used to have costumes. Like I think like I want a band that looks like an anime character, which is funny because he kind of comes across as Blanca from Street Fighter in his videos.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like a monster. So that's what he was going for, is with the
Yeah.
dreadlocks and the tortured face. He actually looks
exactly.
normal when he's not screaming, but when he screams, his face gets so animated. And when he whips his hair around, his dreadlocks are flapping around.
Cool. Yeah.
He looks like a monster. And they're doing that on purpose because I think he wants to be the villain of deathcore. Like he's playing a character.
I've 100% gotten like drawn to that kind of thing. And then, I mean, obviously vocals is one of the primary things that I really look for. Probably like, if I was to say non-vocal primary, Chelsea Grin is something I really like. Shrine of Malice is one
that's so
really
obscure that you like Shrine of Malice.
Yeah, that's what
it's
I'm
not
saying.
it's an obscure band, but like, so Tom Barber just joined Chelsea Grin. Do you like their new album?
Not that much.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say Shrine of Malice. I'm like scrolling through the stuff. And then I did have a phase where I really like sludge metal and like stoner metal and slower pace stuff. So Bong Ripper, Haunted, Spectral Voice, Black Tomb, Wit Chapter, Electric Wizard is one that I'm always partial to.
I've never heard of any of those bands.
Yeah, so it's, you definitely have like the thrash history and then like translate it into more deathcore, which is 100% like where it kind of seems like it's all coming together. And I love that stuff too. So like basically the stuff that I was talking about with Brain of Sacrifice, Shrine of Malice, like those are my guys mainly. I also really like Suicide Silence, but I mean obviously we lost the vocalist. It's not really the same.
So have you ever dabbled in power metal?
I don't think so.
Okay, so power metal is like my dirty secret. Power metal is like fantasy RPG metal with 80s style vocals, like like that kind of stuff, like sissy squealing.
I know.
And so it's like stuff that I'd be like, it's much more mainstream than what I would do, but it's like it would make, I don't know, it's just like I'm kind of embarrassed. Like it's like
I would be the same way, honestly.
It's like it'd be like if Alex the Terrible was listening to Britney Spears in the shower and wouldn't want people to know that he was. It's like me with power metal. But check out Glory Hammer. Glory Hammer is hysterical. It's like a comedy. So Aeostorm is pirate metal, right? And then so the singer from Aeostorm is the keyboardist and songwriter for Glory Hammer. And Glory Hammer is kind of like it's a space opera where the main character fights against the Chaos Wizards and the Goblin Army, and then they keep going back in time to conquer the Earth, so to kill off his ancestors. So the Glory Hammer goes back in time and shoots into his hand, in his ancestors' hands, bringing with it the knowledge, but instead of like ancestral knowledge going forward, it's going backwards. So every album takes place before the last album chronologically. But the characters in the story have forward going memory, kind of like the Pierce Anthony book about time, where like the first book is On a Pale Horse, where the person runs over death with his car, and so he has to become death, and so he gets to go through life touching people and taking their souls, and understands that death's a neutral job. So the second book is Chronos, Father Time, and the thing is you start at the end of time and you work your way towards the beginning of time, kind of like an immortal Benjamin Button, right? So like that's kind of
passing like hands with the hammer. It's like a different person every time.
So and every album's more extreme because they get better at their instruments. Then the singer Angus McFife has his own band now, so the character of the character of Glory Hammer has his own side project. And so like it's so fucking weird. It's just so it's like Angus McFife. And it's like, oh, it's just they've got like what is it? It's like Laser Blasting Dinosaur is like one song. So like it's a cart, and then the video is him riding on a dinosaur that shoots lasers out of its eyes and kills goblins and shit. And then the guitar player is like this black chick with this huge afro, and she rides on an eagle that breathes fire. So it's like he's on this dinosaur shooting lasers out of its eyes, and she's on this eagle. It's a bald eagle, of course, so it's like American, breathing fire on goblins and shit.
Yeah. Okay. So now that you've described everything, I have been familiar with power metal. It's very much like that kind of fantasy thing, almost like if you were to take like the Dungeons and Dragons scene at its core and then translate it into like musical form. It's funny, like the kind of comedy metal almost in some ways at how entertaining it is, but also like the lore and the effort that they put into building stories is absolutely impressive. For me, it's like the metal that I like to listen to. It's almost like how Brand of Sacrifice describes it, is like that villainous music. You want something evil, and you know, anything down the deathcore path is absolutely up my alley. And so you just like find like more and more violent things. I used to make music myself. I would just take like beats from SoundCloud and other websites and download them and then just put my screams over them. And that's what it devolves into, is just like how much noise can you slam together in one project, but like make it sound like there's somewhat of a method to the madness. So a lot of like I don't even know the names of the genres, but kind of like gore metal, maybe, if that's an accurate description. And like
it sounds like
really
you're talking about, so brutal death metal became slam. So like slam bands, slam are like Abominable Putridity or Devourment. Abominable Putridity is, and all those bands to me sound like early Suffo. Like Suffocation was like the first slam band before there was slam bands. And then Suffo inspired Dying Fetus, and then Dying Fetus became the first brutal death metal band. Meanwhile, over in England, Carcass, which was grindcore, split off to do what ended up being melodic death metal, because the Gothenburg sound was bands like The Grave and Stockholm were staying with grindcore, but then there's In Flames, Dark Tranquility, At the Gates. They all started doing the melodic death metal. So death metal had like this splintering effect where old school death metal turned into either melodic death metal or turned into brutal death metal. And then slam is like more brutal than brutal death metal. And then to me, deathcore sounds like slam with the breakdowns. But it brings in black metal artistry, and then they pull in the melodic death metal melody sections and guitar solos. So you get the heaviest heavies, the most melodics, the most technical. It's like the most of every element you could have. And then you get bands like Allegion, which is like the absolute pinnacle. It's just like nobody knows they even exist. But Allegion is probably the most technical band. Same with Equipoise. There's actually a death metal band called Equipoise. Equipoise. It's a spaceship shooting out of a flaming pentagram into a sun, shooting lasers into it. It's like, and Equipoise is super progressive, technical alien deathcore. It's really good.
And Allegion, is that the other one that you were saying?
Allegion, it was a Greek monster with 1,000 heads and 100 arms or something like that. Allegion.
That's sweet. Okay, I got.
And it has none of the original band members. So like the current band members make fun of it. They're like, Al's gay son is what they call the band, because I guess people have mispronounced it so many times and they're stuck with this band name that they inherited, but they didn't start the band. And that's a phenomenon you only see with metal, is when no one in the band was there to found the band.
Like it's
some type of gangster gang
What's that?
Nobody on O Block was there when they actually named it O Block. They're just fighting with the other block, and they have no idea what the beef with the other set's about.
There's that paradox where it's like, if you replace the head of a hammer with a new head and the handle of a hammer with a new handle, is it still the same band? And now it's like they are the same in name only at this point.
Yeah. Like, I think Chelsea Grim has no original band members, for example.
But it's funny because then you get to watch them like change over time. And then there's always that sweet spot. Someone's gonna be like most drawn to that one phase of the band.
Right.
Same thing with like Deathcore. You'll find like your perfect ratio of like, how much melody do you want? How much of the slam influence do you want? How much of the breakdowns, like how heavy do you want it to be? All that stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, like my favorite Children of Bodom album is their second one, Hatebreeder. But a lot of times your favorite album is the first one you really got into.
Yeah. That's definitely true. Because like if you listen to one version of a band and you realize, oh, like earlier they had different members, let's go listen to that, and you're not gonna like it as much because that's not what they are in your head, right? It's very rarely that I'll listen to something and be like, wow, they're way better with the original singer or something like that, right?
I found that the exception to that would definitely be, I think, Mors Principum Est. That Mors Principum Est, it's funny, they lost most of their band members, got Andy Gillian. Andy Gillian made 4 amazing albums. Then Andy Gillian left the band to do his own thing because he was doing everything but the drums by the end and the vocals. And then all the original band members came back. So now Mors Principum Est in 2023 is the same band that they were 20 years ago.
Wow, full circle.
And yeah, it's like Andy was such this overwhelming presence that
hard to just even like stand in the same room as that, basically. So they left and then he leaves and then they go fill his shoes again.
They all come back. It's like a Cavalera Conspiracy just renamed themselves to Cavalera, and they re-released their first 2 albums from Sepultura, Bestial Devastation and Morbid Visions.
Yeah.
Because of the Yoko. So my understanding is Max Cavalera's wife became the band manager after the Roots album, and she started pushing Max as the star, which made all the rest of the band members feel like shit, especially his brother Igor, because Igor as drummer was very unique at the time. And so he eventually left to form Soulfly, and then they got a new singer for Sepultura. Sepultura proceeded for a while, and then eventually Igor, I think 10 years later, called up Max. They reconciled. They formed Cavalera Conspiracy, which is the 2 Cavalera brothers again. I don't know what happened to Sepultura, but I think they have the ownership rights on the songs from the first 2 albums. So they changed their band name again from Cavalera Conspiracy to Cavalera, and then they just re-recorded and re-released Bestial Devastation from 85 and Morbid Visions from 88, which, if you take the new recording of Bestial Devastation and compare it to Altars of Madness or to Death's Scream Bloody Gore, chronologically it took place first and it's heavier. So which means retroactively this makes Sepultura the first death metal band. Because although Possessed is given credit with inventing death metal because they have the song death metal, and Thanatos is given some credit for the term, that Mantis had left the Bay Area and moved to Tampa to use Morrisound Studios, and they changed their name from Mantis to Death. And that's when the first Death album was created. And that's considered the first death metal album.
Yeah.
But Death, Scream Bloody Gore didn't come out till 87. And Sepultura in Brazil had already released Bestial Devastation, Morbid Visions, and I believe Schizophrenia. But it sounded like thrash at the time because they weren't using Morrisound Studios. That the guy at Morrisound Studios figured out that we got to take when they're playing the drums so fast, the digital drum triggers are picking up multiple drums, so it sounds like shit. So what he did is he dug out an old analog recording thing, and they used a normal tape to record the drums, and that's how they're able to get Morbid Angels, Pete Sandoval, to sound so fast. Because normally if you play double bass, it just turned into mush. But when but by doing it in analog, not digital, it was able to actually pick up the sound. And that's the Morrisound sound. That's why all the bands moved to Tampa to form the beginning of death metal, like Malevolent Creation, Monstrosity, Cannibal Corpse moved down to Tampa. Like of course, Morbid Angel, they recorded in Tampa, but they moved to Britain to get signed because Earache Record was the ones who signed Carcass's first 2 albums and Napalm Death's albums, and Bolt Thrower, because grindcore in England sounded different from grindcore in Stockholm, but they both were in the late 80s. And that's kind of where that sound came from. But the actual death metal sound came from the Bay Area, because you got the thrash bands like Slayer, and which was Los Angeles, and Metallica and Exodus were all up in the Bay Area. And then there was a more extreme bands like Possessed and Thanatos. And then so Chuck Schuldiner and I think Ken Kim or something, Cal Kim, moved from Tampa to the Bay Area to learn the thrash sound, and were called Mantis. And when they came back, they had a new sound that was more like Possessed, and it was called Death. And that's why it's called death metal. So sorry for that little history lesson on the origins of the term death metal.
I mean, we have such wisdom at our fingertips right here. We should probably do like a full dedicated cast to this kind of thing at a later date. There's like so much stuff that we touch on.
Like if we just did a podcast just on metal.
Just on metal.
Like a weekly podcast where we just talk about new albums that came out and shit. Well, we probably could review shows too. We could probably talk about, throw up video from some of the shows.
Yeah, have like a reaction type thing, and then like we discuss, you know, you've got all the historical elements, like, yeah, they sound like this album that came out at this time. And
that would be cool.
Like, the new gen
I see what you're saying. Yeah. We just share screen, play a video that just drops. So when a new album, the new video, like, oh, Alex the Terrible is releasing Viking is in a couple days. So when Viking drops, we should do a reaction video together, record it. And then it's Tattered and Todd, what do you call it? Review Alex the Terrible's Viking.
Yeah, exactly. Come up with some kind of a catchy name for that. Absolutely.
I don't know. Like, got to be a D&D reference, but with something else. Like
deathcore and drugs, because we talk about PEDs too.
Yeah, deathcore and drugs. Drugs and deathcore.
Drugs and deathcore.
Drugs and deathcore. That's hysterical. And it gets sued by Wizards of the Coast because we're
using D&D
like logo. Yeah, drugs and deathcore. Yeah, like it.
Yeah, that'd be funny. No, you've been canceled enough already, man. You'll survive.
You're not cool if you haven't been canceled, and Vicky hasn't picked on you.
Yeah, well, my TikTok's been banned, and Vicky's got me, so I'm in the club.
Your TikTok was banned 4 times, and you actually on your new updated FAQ you erased that shit and you just have it down once. I liked how before it was like the actual. It's like I respawned 7 times before I hit a safe spot.
Yeah, so I have all of that. It's still in the document. I just put it down later on because like people don't need to look at how many times my accounts have been blown up. They usually know just the main one, and then they know the newest one.
I think they do, because here,
oh really?
It shows you're that cool. They want you stopped.
Yeah.
And it's like getting thrown out of 1 Applebee's is cool. Getting thrown out of 7 Applebee's is legendary.
There's one way to look at it. Oh, that's fun. Yeah. That's a blast, man. Maybe I should toss that back in there. We'll see. Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know it's getting probably pretty late over there. Actually, it's not there, right? It's only like, well, you only work from 3 to 7, right? That's what you're. Yeah, that's most of my hours. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so we're coming up on 7 now. We can just do this again sometime, probably with more structure.
Yeah, but definitely. I mean, reach out to me, and then as we start building things up, it'll be a blast for sure.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll put your connective links into the description box. Just like I, for instance, have a tap link.
Okay.
Excuse me. So it's one link that has a landing page with all my links. So I usually just give that out to people. So if you don't have that, just send me all your links and how you want it formatted, and I'll put it up on the box.
It's easy. If it's easy enough, my FAQ has all my links in it already. So you can just put that link in there, and then people can click that and find like, my Instagram's on there, my TikTok's on there, however they want to reach out to me. I got my email on there, all that good stuff. So
is it at the very top?
yeah. Yeah.
It's at the very top of your FAQ, the contact information.
The first exact line, it says like my TikTok at, my Instagram
okay.
at, my
all right, that's fine. I was gonna say, because if you don't make it easy for people, people don't do it.
Yeah, they're just gonna be like, what is this all about?
They're like, pass the butter. Like they're not gonna lean over to actually grab it. They're like, pass me the butter.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
how people are.
Yeah.
All right,
cool,
buddy.
Cool.
Well, I had a good time, man.
Yeah, awesome talking to you, Todd. It's been a blast.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
We'll definitely talk again. Yep.
Yeah, drugs and deathcore.
Drugs and deathcore. There you go.